Hello friends, welcome to my video. It's been a while. Um, I've been meaning to do a video showcasing my collection of Stephen King hardcovers. For those of you who've been following this channel, you know that I had gone whole hog into the Stephen King universe and decided to pick up all of his books in hardcover. Most of which I had started with The Talisman right here back when it was new in '84. This was like one of the first new hardcover books I ever bought or was bought for me. And from then on, with a few exceptions, as I'll show you, I collected King exclusively in hardcover. But for all the books that came out before The Talisman, it's about 10 years worth of novels. Those were bought as paperbacks. So I had recently bought it in hardcover when I decided to reread it, the book, or finish it for the first time. I had the paperback back in the 80s and I crapped out on the book. I never finished it. So when I decided to try it again because of the movies, I picked up the hardcover. And that was one of the things that got the ball rolling. The other thing that got the ball rolling, I'm going to have to be turning this camera here and moving it around, is this copy of Salem's Lot. And I'll have to scoop down too. This copy of Salem's Lot is a first edition, and one of my oldest friends in the world gave it to me. His name's George. And between that and that, I decided to go ahead and get all of King's books in hardcover and do a massive reading project for his books, because I haven't read every single thing he's done, and there's a lot of stuff of his that I read for the first time when it was new, like in the 80s and 90s, that I really remember enjoying, that I would love to read again, to revisit. So I would have to really move the camera out here. As you can see, originally I had this set of bookshelves devoted to King, but once I started picking up these other hardcovers, this one filled up. So I ended up extending it over into this side. So the collection starts at that end and goes across, and then it goes down and then across. And then I've got half this shelf here plus these two bottom ones for further expansion. Now, these books up here, sorry for the tilting, are all ones that I've purchased that I either used to own in paperback or they're first time buys. So, for example, Firestarter. I showed this in one of my recent videos, when I was picking all of these up. This will be the next thing I read because I finished the Institute. I'll be talking about that in a few minutes. But this was one of the first King books, actually the first that I bought that I never finished. So when this project sprung up in my mind, I knew that this was going to be one of the books that I would be rereading again from the beginning, just like with it. Doomy, which is right here. Never read that one before. That must have come out during the time when I was sworn off King. For those of you who might be watching me for the first time, because I'm going to post this to the Stephen King group. So, Fuego, if you're watching this, hello. I love your channel, love your videos. I've been addicted to your Hail to Stephen King videos, and the Facebook group too. But anyway, Doomy was one that I missed when it first came out because I was really pissed off at King because of the way he ended The Dark Tower. And I didn't read him for several years, and I think this came out during that time span. All the rest of these, except for Joyland, that was another one that I missed, and I got the illustrated hardcover edition, so I could have the hardcover. And then this one here, this is the Marvel Comics adaptation of The Stand. For several years, Marvel was putting out some really excellent comics based on, here's the book itself, based on Stephen King novels, including The Dark Tower. I have those books also, and I'll be showing them to you momentarily. But I'd missed The Stand when it came out originally, and when I, as part of this project, I decided to pick up this set too. So there's like 3 books there that I'll be working on, alternating with other books that I really enjoyed that I want to reread again, like The Shining, Christine, Pet Sematary, Night Shift, Dead Zone, Thinner. Basically, a lot of his early stuff is what I'm going for. I want to reread books like The Talisman. I want to reread books like the Bachman books. This was the last one that came in that I needed in hardcover. I haven't put a book jacket on this yet. I will. But this was the last one that I needed to complete the collection. And this just came in over the weekend. I'm not going to reread all of the short story collections, but there's definitely some things I want to reread in Skeleton Crew, Eyes of the Dragon I want to redo, Tommyknockers, maybe The Dark Tower again, and I'll be showing you something here in a minute. 4 Past Midnight, of course. Besides reading the comic version of The Stand, I want to reread the uncut version, which is right here. I went back and forth on whether or not I should get the original edited version, and of course I finally broke down and did. I got it. So I have 3 versions of The Stand here in the collection. I've got the original edited one, the unedited one that came out later, and then of course the comic version. But just for completism, and you comic book collectors know what I'm talking about, I decided to get this as well. I don't know if I'll ever reread the edited version again, but I have read the edited version like 3 times. But I've only read the unedited once because it's so bloody long. So, I have to sit down because I'm gonna have to lower the camera down here too. All right. Now, as far as The Dark Tower, the first few stories were originally released in the magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction. The very first Gunslinger story in October of 1978. And there were 4 more stories released after that, which eventually was collected into a limited edition hardcover and a mass market trade paperback many years later. I think when Drawing of the Three came out, they put this out as well, because the date on this is 1988, and I know the hardcover was originally put out in 1982. But I have a 40-year run of the magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, so of course I have all of the first appearances of the Gunslinger. So there it is right there, if you want to see. So this first one came out in 78. The second story came out in 1980, and then the last 3 came out in 1981. So, I'm sorry. Yeah, 1981. So, I pulled these out of the collection of FNSF, and I decided to keep them with my King collection and the Dark Tower. So, it's something that might be of slightly more interest to those of you who are big Dark Tower fans, because I've seen people show collections of their King books and it's basically the same shit I'm going to be showing you here. But moving right along down to this next set of shelves here. Lisey's Story is another one that I've never read before, which probably came out during my King embargo. So that's another one that I'm going to be reading for the first time. I ended up rebuying. Oh, you're not gonna be able to see this. Sorry for the glare and darkness. These are the last three volumes of the Dark Tower. I ended up rebuying them because when I bought them the first time and read them, really didn't like the way they turned out, and I ended up selling them back to half price. So, again, for completism, I ended up rebuying them. This is basically King's output in the 2010s, the 2000s and 2010s right here. And then I'm going to scooch down. This section is primarily the 90s. We've got Dark Tower 3 here, The Wastelands. That's another one that's softcover. I don't know of any hardcover versions, and if there are, I'm sure they're very expensive. The Green Mile is another one I also have in softcover only. I didn't buy the single tiny little paperbacks. I waited for it to be collected before I bought it. And same with Dark Tower 4, also in softcover. But everything else is in hardcover. And then down here is where we get to the current King, current parts of the collection. Starting with Sleeping Beauties, which I really didn't enjoy all that much, and I don't think very many people did either. Of course, some did. I'm not talking for everybody, just my own opinion, guys, so you don't have to speak up or bash me, because I know. The Outsider, of course, The Institute, which I just finished reading, and I'll pull that in a second. These are the other two Dark Tower Omnibus collections that Marvel put out. Really excellent stuff. The artwork is fantastic, and the adaptation by Peter David and Robin Firth is really well done. They retain a very strong flavor of King himself. So these collections are kind of pricey, but if you can find them in any kind of collected edition and you love the Dark Tower, I would say pick them up. And then over here are my two books that I've got by Joe Hill. I've started dabbling into his stuff a little bit. I've got The Fireman. This was a signed first edition that I bought at half price, so I'm assuming the autograph is authentic. And then one of his more recent collections called Strange Weather, which was kind of a mixed bag, but it was still decent. I mean, his writing is very much like his father's, early going in his career, you know, in good and bad ways. This he's very much like his dad. All right. Book review time. I finished The Institute here the other day. This is King's newest book, and I'm not going to get into too much in terms of spoilers, but I enjoyed this book a lot. I think it's very focused because, you know, for you longtime readers of King, you know, he can kind of go off in the weeds sometimes when he gets an idea going about a story or a character's backstory that may or may not pertain completely to the plot, but that's not the case here. You've probably seen and heard a lot about this book already, so I'm not really going to go into a ton of plot points, but overall I thought this was a very solid read. Like I said, I thought it was more focused among King's books, and the ending didn't suck. Almost think he could probably do a sequel to this if he wanted to. It's not completely open-ended that way, but I think if he wanted to return to these characters, he probably could if he wanted to, and make up, you know, another situation for them. Yeah, it's well-paced. It doesn't really drag, even though there's a fairly large cast of characters like there are in a lot of King books. And I liked it. It was solid. You know, that's the adjective that comes to mind the most. Is it's a solid read. You know, it's not mind-blowing like some of his other books are, some of his earlier books. You know, like if you're looking for mind-blowing ideas or things like that. Not really. But it's a good, well-written, well-paced suspense novel. So I like The Institute. And overall, I think King has hit a pretty good stride over the last few years. You know, I enjoyed the Bill Hodges trilogy. I know people kind of go back and forth with that. I thought those were good books. I thought Dr. Sleep was excellent. Of course, 11/22/63, also excellent. I should also add Full Dark No Stars was another book that I started but never finished. I read the first story, which I think is 1922, and thought it was okay. You know, it was pretty dark. But I started reading Big Driver, and it turned me off. I didn't. I think this was the book that I picked up first after I decided I was going to read King again. And I know I didn't really care for Big Driver. I started it, but it wasn't doing it for me, so I ended up putting the whole book down. And this is one of those collections of his that are like different seasons, or 4 Past Midnight. You know, it's a collection of 4 novellas of different lengths. So this is another one I'm going to come back to and finish. I'll start Big Driver over again and read the other 2 that I never got around to. So the list for this project is pretty long, but there are, 4 or 5 books of his that I never had read at all before. So by the time it's all said and done, I'll be completely conversant in all of King's books because I'll have read them all. So there you go. Cycle of the Werewolf. I posted that on Facebook and Instagram, if you're friends with me there. I read that right after The Institute, and that took me like a day. So that was another good one, which I used to own, but the copy that I had, because it was a soft cover book, it fell apart over the years. Just the binding, the glue just failed, and all the pages just went one day when I pulled it off the shelf. So I found a replacement copy at half price, and I reread it because it was real short. So Firestarter will be the next book I read in my King project, and that probably won't be till next week. Probably have a difficult time making videos here for the next several weeks, perhaps months, I don't know. Not going to go too personal into details, but my wife's having surgery a week from today, which is the last day of September, so a week from today she'll be having surgery. It's going to be fairly extensive, and there's going to be a fairly long recovery. So between that and work, I'm probably going to be hard pressed to make videos. But I wanted to get this out because I've been meaning to share my King collection with you. However briefly this is. So I'll still be around the VC, and I'll still be around, the King universe. But videos could be kind of sporadic. So I'm just warning you. I don't want to let anybody down, because I know my last video I said I was going to do all this stuff, and then a week went by, nothing, because again I was stuck working and a lot of things were happening here at home, and just giving you guys warning. So thank you all for watching. Thank you for making it to the end. If you made it to the end, I appreciate it. And thanks for checking out my King collection. So till next time, peace. It's your boy Jeff, and I will see you again soon. Don't know when, but I'm hoping it will be soon. So take care.